half hour, skip below.
Yvette Vickers, Honey Parker, and 50-foot Attack of the 50-Foot Woman?
Yes.
Ooh, tell me about that.
It was a plot, definitely planned by her husband. Allison Hayes played the wife, and I was the other woman named Honey Parker. And her husband falls in love with me, this marvelous, handsome man. And so we get into a little plot to put her away. Of course, the 50-foot part wasn't, we didn't expect that.
Right.
That just... We were just going to kill her.
I see. But how did that all begin, that 50-foot woman, though? I mean...
Well, evidently there was some scientific experiment they were doing with her alcoholism. And then there was a radiation exposure that happened to her through a sighting, you know, of an outer space vehicle. It's really great fun. I can understand after all these years why it holds up. It's fun to watch.
It's a cult film.
Yeah.
Tell about the Leaches. How about the Leaches?
Well,
tell me about the Leaches.
Then Roger Corman, or rather Gene Corman, his brother, called me to do that one because they felt something. They had good vibes on that 50-foot woman thing, and they wanted to use me again in that kind of vehicle. So, you know...
The other woman.
Well,
Always.
This time I'm married, but I have a boyfriend. So I'm cheating the other way this time. Always cheating, that cheating heart.
But is it fun to cheat like that in the films?
Oh, I love those parts.
You do?
Oh, yes.
Why do women like those parts?
Girls.
Come on. Why do they like
Well,
those?
because they give you a leeway, things that you couldn't ordinarily express, you know, and it gives you high energy. It does for me anyway. I find I can do angry scenes and just let go, you know, be a little crazy.
Yvette Vickers, where are you actually from? Where you grew up?
Well, I grew up in Malibu. It's incredible. My father, he was a musician from Kansas City. And my mother brought me out here when I was 6 months old to visit a sister. And she just loved it. She says, I'm not coming back, you know. So naturally he came out and joined us and found a place in Ramirez Canyon, the famous, beautiful Ramirez Canyon across from Paradise Cove.
Studied acting?
Grew up there.
Yvette?
Oh, yes. I have a degree from UCLA in theater arts. I went to school there. And then my education was very important to me. And I thought I was going to be a writer, but I took an acting class at UCLA and I really got the bug. I don't know, there was something, the lights, the excitement, the response, that immediate gratification. So I went immediately into Little Theater and I got my first job, a White Rain commercial.
You got the commercial. This is it.
From doing Little Theater, yes.
White Rain. This is it.
Yes. Ruth Birch saw me in a little musical review because I always keep active as a dancer. I still work out. I do a ballet bar and I do some modern dances, and I found it very therapeutic. I love it, plus the fact that I enjoy dancing. So I got my first jobs in Little Theater in musical reviews. She saw me and called me out for the interview.
And that became a very famous commercial in those days,
Oh,
didn't
it played constantly. It played 10, 15 times a week on different shows. It was on the World Series 4 years in a row.
Got to get back with you. You did theater.
Yeah.
But your first film, what was your actual first?
First film was James Cagney discovered me.
James Cagney?
James Cagney.
He discovered Yvette Vickers?
Yes.
Come on, let me know about
I
this.
had done Cherie and Bus Stop, and people at Paramount got their attention. So they told him about me. He said, I didn't even read for him. He called me in for the interview for Shortcut to Hell. And we got involved in a long discussion. I was reading a biography of Lorette Taylor, and he said, oh, I saw her in Chicago, and she was so great. Oh, I said, yes, that's the kind of actress I want to be. I was so serious. Yeah, theater. Well, I still feel that way about the theater. I said, oh, yes, you know, I'm so dedicated. You know, this is so important to me. So he said, well, do you want to be in this movie? You want the job?
Is that what he said?
Yeah, I said, yes. He said, you've got it.
Just by all that enthusiasm?
Yeah, he didn't read me.
He saw that, though.
But he heard. He had heard. I did audition for the production staff.
How was it working with James Cagney at the time?
Oh, He's everything everyone ever said about him. Doris Day at the AFI tribute. He was such an artist, so dedicated. He didn't talk about it a lot until that night at the AFI Institute you know, show for him that they gave for him. But I saw it immediately. He was just intense in the work and loved actors. He worked with us. Every time somebody from the press came over to talk to him, he said, here, this girl is great. She's going to be a big star. You've got to talk to her. She's the one you want to talk to. And I did. I got a lot of coverage from all over the world, in France and London.
You played sexy roles, though. You did a lot of sexy,
yes,
like the other women, but sexy parts, Yvette.
Yes, I loved doing that, but it was a little schizophrenic, and I think it sent a lot of mixed signals out.
Well, because, look, I want to show you a picture, what I think is this picture. Now, let's face it, if you send that to an agent or a casting office, what are they going to book you as? Am I right? Huh?
Well, those are great parts, though. You know, I didn't mind it. I had a narcissistic tendency, so it was, you know, I enjoyed doing those kind of shoots. I did a lot of shoots out at the beach in bikinis, and even when I was doing theater work and promoting that serious actress, but it was very schizophrenic, and I think it confused people.
Some of the people. Marilyn Monroe, were you hanging around with those people?
I
or
never
did you?
met, it was just a little before. I came in around 58, 59, and no, I was...
You just came after.
Just, you know, it was just a few years before her death, and I didn't meet a lot of women. Natalie Wood was somebody that I met, and I liked very much, and she liked me. She was one of the few women that was supportive with me. Not too many women were friendly. No, they weren't too friendly. And of course, you know, the way I looked, it's true. I showed my figure, and I liked doing it. So, and no apologies, you know, I enjoyed it. And men showed me a lot of attention, and I liked that too.
Did you think you had an easy time when you first began your career out here?
Well, I was very lucky, yeah. As far as, I worked hard.
Right.
Now, this all came from hard work, and I also continued with workshops. Ben O'Ree, the famous, had been in the group theater in New York. Shelley Winters used to come to our workshops. Jeff Hayden
was this
directed.
the Actors Lab, was it called?
He was with the Actors Lab in the group theater in New
By
York.
the Schwabs?
He came, and he also had a studio over the Cornet Theater. And that's mainly where we met, in this huge, big ballet loft. And that's where all these, Anthony Quinn used to come there. We had Rod Steiger, great guest artist.
But you did a great movie with Paul Newman. Now, a lot of people know about this. The Hug.
No.
One of the my favorite movies, The Hug.
He was wonderful.
Melvin
Douglas. I just did a play with him in New York. I just come back from New York.
Tell me about that.
Well, I did a Broadway show that George Roy Hill directed. It was called The Gang's All Here.
Right.
Political satire in the 20s. And I played a dance hall girl. It ends up with the President of the United States for one evening. And dancing on the table and drinking and laughing. Very, very raucous scene. And it ended up on this front of the Sunday Times with a Hirschfeld caricature with Melvin Douglas. So that was a thrill, you know. That was, and working with E.G. Marshall, we became friendly, and Arthur Hill, all those great actors. It was an experience I can't even, you know. I mean, this is too much. It would take hours to. Right. All the stories and Melvin
Douglas. But how did
this
hub come about?
And when I came back, the first thing that happened almost was I'd gone with Phil Gersh. Right. Where I met later on. I met James Hutton. But I was signed up by Phil Gersh, and they said there's only 3 scenes in this movie. Now, they knew before I left town I'd been doing leads in television, leading roles in theater, starred in 2 B movies. So granted, they're B movie, but I starred in them. Right. So they were going, no, this is a smaller part, but a major movie and a big star, you know, Paul Newman. I said, gosh, but look at these little scenes. You know, there are only 3 little scenes. And anyway, finally they talked me into it. I did it. I'm glad I did it, but I think they cut an awful lot. It ended up on the cutting room floor, and so it was a perception, I guess, that I was doing small parts, and that
Yeah.
kind of hurt me as far as films. But I kept.
But that
getting-
was Paul Newman's favorite film.
It's a great film.
At the HUD.
Yes, and Patricia Neal was wonderful in
Yes,
it too.
yes.
Yeah, he was great in that, and we had a lot of fun. We clowned around, and we were shot by a wonderful Life magazine photographer, kidding around in the set. And I wish that had been in the movie. That was hilarious.
I'd like to get back to the 50-foot woman. I'd love to see that film right now. I think this is it, isn't it? We're going to show
you got
a clip.
a clip. Oh, good.
Yeah, we're going to
yeah.
show a clip of the 50-foot woman. Okay?
Harry, what do your wife say?
She'll say, buddy. Good night, anyhow. You see the way she tore out of here in that big car of hers?
Caught us nodding to each other.
She'll make up for all the things she hasn't caught us doing. I'm so fed up. Never should have agreed to go back to her once we were separated.
Why did you?
You know why? Couldn't pry one nickel out of her. The community property routine only works for women. Man hasn't got a chance.
Unless the wife dies. I didn't say anything.
You were thinking it.
Not the same thing. Didn't you say she was in the nut house for a while?
Private sanitarium.
What's the difference? She was off a rocker, wasn't she?
I suppose so. Well, they've got some fancy name for it. Mostly she'd have these violent headaches. And she got falling down drunk. Still has them to this day. What are you getting at?
Come on now, Harry. Let's not be naive. You've made a good start, now follow through. She's on the brink and you know it.
I don't know it. This Dr. Cushing seems to be helping her a lot. She's tapering off in the bottle, too. Hardly took a drink all evening. You saw her.
All she needs is a little help. Play the husband right to the end. Once she's in the booby hatch, throw the key away. That'll put you in the driver's seat. You'd make a wild driver, Harry. With $50 million.
To be a movie star in a B movie, it's, I mean, a leading role to be in a movie, in a B movie. The B movies right now are very, very popular.
I think that's why it came back. There's a tremendous audience for
Out there,
these.
aren't there?
Yes.
Young kids today really love those
They
B movies.
love it. They started watching it on TV. It showed a lot in the 70s, mid and late 70s. And in fact, a friend of mine used to say, oh, there's another Yvette Vickers Film Festival on this weekend. They'd play it three or four times.
Yeah, people
a week.
personate you as Honey Parker, don't they? Some girls dressed
Yes.
like Honey Parker.
Yes,
Isn't that
yes.
strange?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's anyway, tell me about men in your life at the time. You had a lot of men in your life. Come on, Yvette. You had Ralph Meeker, one of the Hollywood's great sexy men.
Ralph was beautiful. I met him in New York when I was working, and it was an exciting time in my life, and no one could have been more perfect in the romance department than Ralph. He was so caring. He was a bit of a father figure to me. He was much older, but so romantic and still beautifully handsome at that point. And he showed me New York. He just romanced me and showed me New York City.
More ways than one.
Every way, the handsome cab in the park, the best restaurants. Cooked for me. He was a master chef.
Was he really?
Yes, played the piano. You know, he loved to play the piano. Very entertaining guy. A lot of humor. And very intelligent.
Is that what you find in a man? Sense of humor?
Sense of humor seems to capture me. It's the first thing. Although we fought a lot, we met in a conflict like that in a restaurant through a mutual friend, and we were screaming at each other as the evening ended. But the next thing I knew, he invited me out to apologize with flowers, and that was it. We just
How about this man right here?
Oh, Lee Marvin.
Lee Marvin.
I loved
Come on.
Lee. Well, you know, I have a rule. I don't date married men. He was married. We had dinner a few times, and he was charming, and I have to admit I was tempted, but he was married. So I have never knowingly been out with a married man.
Yes, but
there was an
was
Italian director that captured me once.
Oh,
You
who's
didn't
that?
tell me.
No, go ahead, tell me. Who's that?
Oh, wonderful guy named Franco Rossi. I met him through Peter Howard. And he had...
Is that the Vanderbilt?
Yeah,
Howard?
Peter Howard from the Vanderbilt. Yes.
Gene
Very
Wallace.
dear.
Gene Wallace
Oh,
used to
he-
tell me
he
about
was-
Peter.
He was the sweetest guy. He just, it's a love. And if I was having the blues, you know, with one of these love affairs, and they were, you know, I fell in love. I didn't just go out with somebody. I really would fall in love. And I was mad about Franco, and of course when he'd be back in Rome, I didn't know he was married until one day, and nobody mentioned it.
Right.
You know, it's, I don't know whether it's some unwritten law or what, but I heard him talking on the phone one morning, and I came out, and he's joking and laughing, and I said, who is that? And he said, oh, my wife. Like Marcello Mastroianni or something, you know. It's kind of like, and I said, you forgot to tell me about that.
Oh, I see. And that's
Too
that's
late.
that's
I
what
was
too
already
late.
involved, you know.
The man in your life, really, one and only.
The
Jim
one and only
Hutton.
Jim Hutton. Yes, yes.
Jim Hutton.
Jimmy
Tell me about him.
was a beautiful human being, intelligent. Again, the great sense of humor. Just charmed you to death. You just, you know, love him. Everybody loved him, and he loved telling stories. We often had dinner at Scandia, and we'd be sitting there all night long. At 2 in the morning, the waiter would come up and say, "I'm sorry, but you guys have got to leave," you know. And we were just engrossed in each other, and also in the stories and his general great.
You lived in
charm.
New York with him, didn't you, for a while?
We were here in Malibu. I traveled with him to the East Coast because we went back to see his children. His ex-wife had decided not to let them come to Malibu anymore, so we flew back and saw them. I would stay in Boston in the hotel, and he would go to Cambridge to visit.
A terrible moment at the hospital for you that evening when
yes.
Jim Hutton was very, very sick.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Well,
he had, what did he have?
He had lung cancer, and he very, very sweetly told me, you know, that the doctor had given him the news, and he told me in such a way, the courage was amazing. He took it like, I don't even know how to describe it, so bravely. He said, well, you know, David, we had the same doctor, David Levinson was our doctor, and he said, David said that I have 6 months to live. He said, I'm going to make the most of it. He said, maybe, who knows, you know, I may go on. But for now, I'm just taking one day at a time. He was so brave and planning, you know, putting his affairs in order.
And he kept working for this?
He was planning on working, but he only lasted a month.
Really? Just a month? Right after the news?
They operated on him immediately and evidently did not get it all, and it spread into the rest of his body. So within 2 weeks, he was back in the hospital and never recovered. He passed on in the hospital.
Yvette Vickers is very religious, isn't she?
I'm
Yes,
spiritual.
you are spiritual.
I've always had a feeling, a spiritual tendency, no matter what was going on in my physical life. I was always tuned in to that and very protected, amazingly protected. So I feel, you know, I feel strongly about it, and I did have an upbringing in Catholic school. And then later I went on a lot of searches on my own, almost every religion I
Looking
looked
back
into.
over your career in Hollywood as doing a lot of great movies and plays and met a lot of great stars.
Yes, yes.
Do you have any...
I have been blessed. I have been blessed.
You don't have any regrets, do you? Do you have any...
No.
Would you do it the same way?
I think so. You know, there are times when I thought, well, I made this mistake, that mistake, but I don't. I think everything happens for the right reason, and I'm where I am now because that's where I'm supposed to be. I love what I'm doing. I'm working again. I'm excited about it.
And you're with the animal rights?
Juices are flowing.
Animal rights.
Yes, I'm very, very concerned about wildlife, and I belong to PETA and also to Actors and Others for Animals, and I do everything I can.
And you help
I
the
perform
homeless.
at benefits.
You help the
for-
homeless.
Yes,
You do all those wonderful
I do
things.
go to those charities.
Why do you keep yourself so busy? And you live out
up in the mountains.
Tell me about that.
I'm splitting my time now, but the way the work is going, now that I've started working again, I think I'm going to be based again in LA and have my vacation time out there. You know, go out there when I'm not working.
I see.
But I've been working so much now that the 2 hour, even though it's just 2 hours, it's still the travel time is a little rough. So I think I'm going to base here and then go up there when I get free, you know, to do that. I love it up there. It's beautiful in Wrightwood.
Yvette
Yeah.
Vickers, have you ever been married?
Yes, I was married to a musician, a bass player with Bud Shank's jazz quartet.
Right.
And he was a wonderful person. He ended up playing with the San Francisco Symphony, but I was too young. I wasn't ready for it, you know. And
Any children?
I was just beginning my career.
Any children?
No, I did not.
Good.
Did not.
May I say? Singer. You're a singer.
I love to sing. I've always sung.
But you got an act together now. For, tell me about this.
Work in progress. This
Tell
is
me.
work in progress. I do have a cabaret act, and I'm halfway there, and I'm working real hard. I have a keyboard player that I work with and a guitar player. And we're selecting material now. I record a lot of the tunes so I can hear, you know, how it sounds. And I love it. I love singing. My parents are musicians, so I've been around it all my life. My father's a jazz saxophone player, and my mother's a concert pianist. So I got both the jazz and the classical going.
Great.
You know.
But you just did a movie with Karen Black and Artie Johnson.
Absolutely.
Evil Spirits.
Evil.
Well, here we go. Evil Spirits.
Live spelled backwards.
My God. Tell me about, what is it spelled backwards?
Live.
Live. Tell me about Yvette Vickers and working with Karen Black. What a good actress.
We just have a wonderful few scenes together. They're a joy to work. I loved working with her. She's a marvelous actress. I've always admired her a great deal. I loved her in Gatsby. I thought she did an extraordinary job. And in everything. She's wonderful in this, too. And our stuff together is adorable. They're kind of light comedy scenes, and they're charming and wonderful. I was very pleased with it. I just saw it yesterday. And the rest of my stuff is a little more dramatic.
When is Evil Spirits coming out? When will it be out?
Soon to be released. I don't have it. I didn't get a release date on that.
But tell me about looking back at your career again.
Yeah, well, I had a great time, you know, and I think that you have to pay some dues. When you're that young, you know, I was about 15 when I started.
You were 15?
When I got the White Rain commercial, and I really was accepted so quickly. Although I'd worked hard, I don't want to underestimate that. I was working, I mean, 24 hours a day.
I'm going to ask you a question. Is there was there a casting couch at the time in Hollywood at those days?
It wasn't so bad. I think.
Did you have a rough time?
I got chased around the desk a few times, but I never got caught.
Go ahead.
No, I never believed in that. I thought that if I couldn't be good enough performer, talent, accepted on those terms, then I wasn't going to go forward with it. I had to be accepted as an artist or not at all. And I still feel that way. I think it's very important for your mental state and your emotional
You've seen Hollywood
stability.
changed a lot, Yvette, since the 50s?
Well, it's so much scattered now, you know. I mean, there's all these independent, and everybody's running around and doing deals and everything. It was a little more organized then, a little more concentrated. You know who stood for what. And
you were at Paramount, though, weren't you?
Paramount was
you were
my
a contract
home.
at Paramount. Tell
my
me.
home. I always will feel, I don't know, something very nostalgic and very sentimental about Paramount Studios, and it has a lot to do with James Cagney. But the other part is that it's just a glamour to me. You know, I had a wonderful experience there. Everybody was so nice, and Edith Head, all those great.
You had a story about Edith Head. Tell me about that. Tell me that story about Edith Head at Paramount.
She was fitting me for Shortcut to Hell, and we had a dress that I thought it beautifully clung in this great crepe fabric, which they don't even make anymore. But it was a fantastic gown. But I, for some reason, I thought it didn't look good on me. I thought the color wasn't right for my complexion or something. So she said, "Well, go tell Mr. Cagney. Don't. It's no problem." I think she knew he was in an important meeting with the heads of the studio, but you know, she had a little sense of humor too. I liked her, and So I marched into the office, and here he is, you know, a big long table with the top executives at Paramount. They're glaring at me like, what are you doing here? And he saw me and smiles. He says, Yvette, come on in, you know. And I went in, and I said, well, Mr. Cagney, I just want to ask you about this dress. I said, you know, Edith Head thinks it looks good on me, but isn't this a funny color, and plum kind of color on me? I don't know. And he said, well, Yvette, you're just asking the wrong guy. You know, if you came in a gunny sack, I would love it. I would say you look great, you look sensational, you know. Well, that stopped me. I looked at him and I said, well, actually, it's not bad. It's pretty good, isn't it? He says, you look great to me. He says,
They
it's up to you.
They treated stars great those days in the studios,
so
didn't they?
gentle,
They took care of
such
you.
class, you know. That, I think that was the stature, the attitudes were grand, you know. And
Does Yvette go out a lot nowadays?
I'm work. I'm a workaholic. I have a lot of friends. I think that's the main thing to me now. I'm not. I can't do the two. I can't
Years
seem to have
ago-
romance and work.
Yeah.
I have
Years
to be
ago in Hollywood,
work.
it was work always been work. They had to get up early in the morning to get made up.
Oh yeah, those 5 o'clock. You had to be there, and you shampooed, and you.
So there's no glamour to Hollywood like
was-
people really think there is.
I loved it, actually. I didn't mind going 2 hours early and having my hair shampooed and set, and the makeup. Everything took longer, but when you came out, you looked good, too.
I see. Yeah. Hollywood has
I
never
loved it.
changed. It never will change.
Well, you know, my nostalgia for Hollywood,
Yeah.
I was lucky. I did meet a lot of the greats, you know, like James Cagney and Melvin Douglas and, well, Paul Newman, although he's still with us,
Right.
is one of those legends. And so I've really had a lot of good fortune in that sense, you know. And I, as I said, I knew Natalie Wood and some of the
What
more
kind of girl was
contemporary.
Natalie Wood, really?
Sweet and
she really?
fun. I saw her mostly at Gathering, you know, like Au
Parties.
Petit Jean. You know, we had the sort of. I was very much in that scene in the sense that I went to photo opportunities. I was ambitious, and I did those things. You know, I didn't stay up in my mountain all the time. I would come down if I thought it would be helpful for my career. It was part of the business, you know, and I'm becoming more and more business oriented.
But you're getting your act together and taking it on the road now?
I'm
Singing?
taking charge. I'm taking charge. I'm producing a lot of these tapes that I do in a professional way in the studio, and also working on a film
Your
project.
movies, Leeches, and also The Attack of the 50-Foot Woman is being found in the video shops right now?
Yeah,
they can go into video
they
shops
can
to get
rent
them?
it,
Really?
and they can buy it. Yeah.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah, the kids seem to love it, and that's a thrill to me. I think the fans are the most exciting part of this quote-unquote comeback trail, happy trails. I'm very delighted with that because they are sweet,